Okay, so let's get started on adding color to your drawings for ants. There's a couple things you need to remember when using colored pencil on a Shrinky Dink. It will look like the color isn't sticking very well. But trust me, once it goes in the oven and the color condenses when the plastic shrinks, the color will show up. It will also amplify quite a bit. So keep that in mind when you're adding like the blacks, because if you put a lot of black on, it gets too intense. Like the ones that I did, like there was a lot more detail in that drawing and it did get too dark. So just apply the blacks a little bit on the light-handed side. White isn't necessary to use at all because the Shrinky Dink is white. So just remember, if something needs to be white, you need to just avoid that area so it stays white. Also in your supply list, there was to grab a little paintbrush, because as you're shading and adding color, little crumbs of those colored pencils just break off all over the place and you have to keep sweeping them away. You don't want to use your finger because you'll put body oil on this Shrinky Dink and it'll hold dirt and it just gets a mess. You'll also need to sharpen your colored pencils a lot because the drawing is small enough that every time you use it, you're probably going to have to get a new point on it. So I'm just going to start with probably the stem because it just seems like the most likely place to start. So I've kind of picked out colors that I think are close to what's on my drawing, and I'm going to work from light to dark. So I'm going to grab probably the lightest, like yellow, because it's kind of a goldy brass, and I'm just going to add that highlight there, that streak. And you know what? I think I'm just going to go over the whole thing, because that whole stem, because I'm just going to add the darks, on top of this. And I'm just kind of lightly adding that color. I'm not going to do this down here. I'm just doing it in one section at a time. So I'm just kind of lightly rubbing that across. I'm not applying a bunch of pressure because remember, when it goes in the oven, it is going to condense the color. All right, so I've done that. I'm going to add some of the darker gold, probably down here. It looks like it gets darker under all that brown shading. And it's probably darker on the outside because remember, it's a cylinder and the sides go away from you. All right, now I think it starts to get kind of green. So over here, I'm going to start adding some green. Looks like that brass has a green tint to it to me. So I'm going to add that line right down the side. It's pretty darn green across here. Now I'm changing my stroke of my pencil to kind of follow the curve. I'm going to add that. That looks like it's darker here. And there's a dark streak right there. And it's dark out here. And that's just kind of, whoops, I almost used my finger to smudge it. Brush away my little crumbs. And now I think I need to start adding some grays. So I think this needs to have kind of gray on top of it. And there's a little bit of gray grunge in that highlight. It's not perfectly clean. Looks like it's kind of gray through here. And it kind of gets gray all the way down from that spot that was kind of green. And there's some more gray here. Kind of a gray-brown. It's got a dark spot there. I think I'm gonna maybe add a little more yellow up there. Brush away my crumbs. I need to add a darker gray. Maybe I need to get out the black. Just add a bit of black. Yeah, just a little. On this side, there's quite a shadow there. There's kind of a thick spot there because there's a shadow being cast by the earpiece. Just gonna brush on a little bit of black. Some of these places because that brass is real dirty. I think I'm gonna switch to this color. I like this dark brown green. Kind of like what it does. Do on the outside that highlight a little bit. It's kind of right there. Doesn't look dark enough. I think I want just a touch of black on that little. I'm looking at that shadow right there on that ring. Come back in with maybe the darker gold. Start that. Add a little bit of brown on the bottom edge. Looks like it needs some black over here. Down around the bottom edge of that little curve. Looks like that shadow needs to kind of sneak down that edge too. I feel like I lost that little highlight right there. So I'm taking a little bit of white and pushing away some of the yellow. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to the real light yellowy, kind of yellowy cream color. I'm gonna lay that highlight in. Okay, then I'm gonna work out from that with the gold. Kind of put the under color, like the brass underlying color. On that part. Oop, I don't want to get, I want to keep it highlight right there. All right, now I see a little bit of kind of a rusty color, kind of a reddish coppery color. There, I'm going to add it. It creeps down a little. I know some of you are looking this going, Mrs. Bowers, how the heck are you seeing all that? I don't see it at all. Well, it just takes practice. You've really got to just train your eye to keep looking for details. You don't want to miss something. You know, you want your eye just to keep on looking. Say, oh, I know there's a dark shadow right there. It kind of follows that curve and then it creeps in here. Goes under that little red highlight. Kind of sits down on top of that yellow spot. I'm getting too many crumbs again. I think I'm going to add some real dark gray up along here. Some dark gray out here. I need to get that green in there. Yeah, it definitely needs that same green that was on the stem. that highlight. I do not want to lose a highlight. Oh, I feel like I'm losing it. Oh, no. Maybe if I put some blue there, it'll highlight it more. Okay. Go back to this funky gray. Bring it around that lip. All right, I need some yellow again. It's gold. Trying to get this ring. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm back. I looked up at my phone and my screen went blurry, so I had to stop the video and start over. All right, so I'm going to continue on in that same manner here and here. But what I want to do, I mean, you can watch me do that forever, but I'd like to show you what I'm talking about in the black area. So I don't want you to overdo the black. I'm going to pay real close attention right now to avoiding the highlight, and I'm just barely brushing that black in there. It will get so dark that and I don't want to lose that highlight. There's a highlight right here. I'm going to lay this gray in here because I just don't want to accidentally not have it. There's that really, really, really tiny white highlight right there, and I don't want to lose it. So I'm going to kind of sneak down around the bottom edge. Kind of couple on the outside. So I'm working like the negative space around that highlight. I want to be careful not to get in it. Okay, then it is a little bit gray there. I don't want to put too much. And then the color kind of sweeps across. I might even switch to a gray. I'm just afraid that I'm going to get too black. So I'm going to switch to a gray right here. I'm getting too many crumbs. And you see I'm shading directionally. I think I just covered up that little highlight. I'm going to go back with my black and kind of try to avoid that spot. There's a highlight there, and then there's a highlight there, but they're not bright white. They're gray. So I did put gray under them, but then I'm going to kind of come back around and start adding the color of that earpiece. I love these old phones. Have you ever seen the really, really old movie, It's a Wonderful Life? And Jimmy Stewart is talking to the girl that he loves, and it's a really, really old film, classic, and he's talking to her on a candlestick phone, and kind of when he first realizes that he's in love with her. And it's just a charming, it's like one of the most famous love scenes in the whole world. And when I was a little girl, my grandma had that movie on. It's usually on at Christmas time. And I fell in love with that phone that was in Jimmy Stewart's hand. So I've always wanted one of these. Never got one. They do have a fan just like the fan in the little set of antiques that I drew. I do have one of those fans, probably two of them, that I got a hold of. But I have not gotten a hold of one of these phones yet. So I'm carefully working on, there's a highlight on top, and there's barely a little black line around it. So I want to avoid a sliver up there. Man, I hope that shows up. I think these highlights need to be a little bit darker around them so they show up. Same thing with that one down there. And it's got to have a blacker line around the outside of it. And I feel like that highlight's too light. I think I'm going to put some more gray in it. I've got a darker gray too. I think it needs to be at the top of it. Oh, I can't see with the crumbs. All right. Bring some color into that highlight a little bit. Because I want this one to pop. Got a little too big. And I want this one over here to pop. I feel like that's just a little bit too white yet, because that's as white as this, and this should be whiter than this. So I'm gonna just brush some gray in there. Okay, so I'm gonna continue like that. I'm going to add a lot of green, you know, in the earpiece, a lot of it black in the handle, paying very close attention to these little highlights. The little label here, there's two little tiny screws. I'm going to try and make sure I get them in there. I'm going to spend probably a good hour, you know, trying to make this as perfect as I can, maybe 2 hours before I actually get ready to put it in the oven. What I want you to remember is you need to add a surface that it's sitting on. So I've got like a tabletop I added back here, and I would, you know, bring a shadow down, you know, so that the thing's sitting on something. Then I'm looking at mine here, and they've all got a cast shadow here, like the light source is coming this way. So the light source is kind of like, it's light up here and it's light here. So that means there would be a pretty cast shadow over here. So it's got a tiny one in the picture. I'm just gonna kind of exaggerate it a little bit. Kind of scoot that under there. Okay, so it's got a cast shadow. And I'm also, if you can see, I did sign them. So I'm gonna sign it too when I'm done. Probably not here because that shadow's here, probably right here. I'll sign it with a dark gray colored pencil. So that's what I want you to do. Take your time, do a really good job, and I'll come back. Maybe I'll pop in and out while I'm working on it and turn the video on and just share a little bit with you until I'm done. So I'll see you in a little bit. I got done doing all the values of all my colors and adding them to my Shrinky Dink, and I looked up and my phone had died. So you didn't get to see me finish the cord and the tabletop shadow and the drop shadow and sign my work. So sorry about that. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pack this up, take it home, and put it in my oven and shrink it down into that beautiful little mini drawing for ants. And I will videotape that whole process for you tonight. See you later.